Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Driven Moms Answering Adversity interview series, Stories of Success Through Setbacks from Mom Elevated. Together, we can shine a light on how normal challenges and struggles are, along with how we can overcome and rise above them. I'm super excited. Today, we have Dr. Sarah to share her story with us. So, if you want to get us started with just a little bit about your story briefly, go ahead.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited for this opportunity. So, like you said, I am Dr. Sarah. I am a family physician, a wife. I am a mom of four, literally about to be five. I'm 38 weeks tomorrow as of this recording. So, we are right there. And I am an exercise enthusiast. And so, my journey right now, I am currently creating exercise content on YouTube and on social media, just trying to show people and inspire people how movement can be simple. It doesn't have to be complicated, and you can see physical and mental health wins without it needing to be this like huge production, lots of money, lots of time. There's ways to do it that are effective. I think a lot of this journey for me is because I was a competitive athlete when I was younger. And then when I went to med school and got married and started having all these babies, I really struggled figuring out how to keep moving in a way that worked for my phase of life because I was so used to it being sort of ingrained and prescribed by somebody else, like a coach. And so it really bothered me as a mom who wanted to keep her family healthy. And so at one point it was like, we got to figure this out. I've found some things over the years that have been really effective for me. And then got a little burned out with being a family physician, not putting myself first anywhere, which is, of course, quite common with busy moms. And ultimately ended up in a situation where it was like, okay, we need to make a pivot, we need to make some changes. And then I got really excited about getting successful with moving consistently, even as a mom of all these little kids, and thought maybe I have some things to share for others. And so that's what got me on this journey now of this movement on social media and YouTube. And so that's where we're at now. So I'm not sure where the path is going next, but that's what's happening.
I love that. That is incredible. Also, I never would have guessed you were that far I never would have guessed you were pregnant at all getting on this
if you
call.
if you watch my I literally just before this filmed a YouTube video. So I'm gonna put it up in the next probably tomorrow or today. You can see my huge belly because I can't show it here because it'll be out of screen. But yeah, it is. We are there. It is big.
I can't wait. That's exciting. Oh, yay.
Yeah, thank
How
you.
long how long have you been a family physician?
Yeah, so I graduated med school in 2014. I finished my residency in 2017. So I practiced from 2017 until 2022 is when it just sort of like coincided with a good time to shift out of that. I was pregnant with my fourth at the time. And so basically what I did is I kind of like quit into maternity leave and then just had a really extended maternity leave, which was a wonderful opportunity to kind of think about where I wanted to go and what our lives, like what my husband and I and our kids, like what we sort of envisioned moving forward for us.
I think that's beautiful. And then so how did you decide to start posting on YouTube and start doing that kind of thing and saying, when you were like, this is something I might be able to share with others? When did that
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually found a business school for physicians that my husband heard the person who created it, her name is Dr. Una, but he heard her on a podcast and she was talking about how, a lot of times for physicians nowadays, it just feels like things are out of our control, like our lives are dictated by insurance companies. And when you work for a large organization, people that maybe aren't even practicing medicine are setting some of the rules and the standards. And That combined with, like I said, sort of putting everybody else above myself, it was like I was just looking for something. I was looking for a different path. I felt like there had to be another way to do it. And I found her podcast. She was talking all about how physicians can thrive in business. And I was like, I want to do this. And so I joined this business school because I always felt like I had a little bit of that entrepreneur in me, but I was terrified because we don't learn any of that in medicine. We don't really learn much of the business of medicine. It's like you graduate, you do your training, and then it's kind of like you figure that out on the job. And so I had no idea that any of this was possible. And when I joined, I realized like, okay, the first step is going to be finding my voice and figuring out, like where do I want to go? And I just started thinking about what's something that I do every single day that I'm passionate about. One is take care of my kids, but two is incorporating movement and exercise into that. And when I started thinking about that, it was like, okay, for years, I really coached patients because I'm primary care. I coached patients on how movement can affect so many different diseases. A lot of times it can improve things where we may be able to either take a path away from medication or decrease a dose, all of these things. And so it was just a great way for me to combine like a passion of mine with something that is also incredibly helpful for others.
Ah, that's amazing. I'm so glad you did that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. I have 2 questions from there, because it
Yeah.
obviously, as parents, we're busy enough. As physicians, I imagine you have an incredibly full plate as well. What made you then decide, "I'm gonna take this extra piece on for me and figure out how to fit it in?" And then time-wise, how were you like, "Yeah, I'm going to figure out the time, like, I will have the time to do this in between all the other things I'm doing. It's gonna work out." Like, what it kind of folds into my other question is, what adversity have you answered? Like the pivotal adversity, and how? So kind of fits together, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think the time piece is something that I have learned over the years. I think inherently when you do things like, make a decision to go to medical school or training, like even before I was a parent, I had to become more efficient with my time because you just run out of time to do all the things. I think a lot of it for me honestly was mindset where I really had to learn to maximize on the minutes that I had. So, as an example, with movement, when I was a competitive athlete, it was like exercise was defined by I must be incredibly sweaty, it must be at least an hour, like all of these things that a lot of people will define things by. But then it's like, that's not realistic as a mom of one, never mind four. And so it was like, okay, everybody's entertained or taking a nap. I'm going to take 5 minutes here and do something for 5 minutes because I think if you actually sit down, I've actually done this before, which was incredibly helpful, and do like a time audit and see like how much time you're spending on some of the things that you do. It like opens your eyes to, oh my gosh, like that I was spending 30 minutes in places that my brain was telling me it was actually only 5 minutes. And so when I did that, it really helped me realize moving for a minute is better than moving for 0 minutes, or moving for 5 minutes is better than 1 minute. And so it was really just that mindset shift of using the time that you do have instead of focusing on I have no time, because when you make it into that positive mindset, it like opens up so many more doors for your brainstorming and your mindstorming and your thinking, and it just like sets you on that more positive path.
Yes. I'm I very much advocate time management, and that's kind of what I do in my coaching is time management, goals, priorities,
Okay.
kind of thing. So that's yes, love that answer. That's one.
Yeah, sure. And in
And
terms of the, oh, sorry, because you had
no, you're
asked about adversity. I
yeah.
think that for me, there's not necessarily like a specific moment in time. It was more about, like I said, coming to the realization the last job that I had, when I was in it, there was a lot of like external blaming that I did where it was like, I'm not valued, I'm not supported, which was not untrue. But when I started to think about it, like I said, what I really realized is I also was not taking ownership of taking care of myself. So it was kids, husband, patients, house management, all these other things. And then once I checked all those boxes, it was like, okay, now it's time to take care of me. But by the time I got there, either time ran out or I was just so tired, it was like, never mind. And what, like, the biggest lesson for me in being able to overcome that was if I prioritize myself, I am so much better and can perform better. And then I am even better for these others around me. And it took me years and coaching, both business coaching and personal coaching, to really understand that. And I think, a lot of times I think the coaching world, it's sort of like, why would you need a coach? But it's the same thing like an athlete, right? Like athletes have a coach because the coach is their guide. They're not doing the work for you, but they're your guide and they help accelerate things in a way that would not happen if you did not have them. And so I was definitely that person that was like, what do you mean you have a coach? Like, what does that even mean to have a coach? And then when I started doing it, it was like, oh, this is exactly why, because here I am, like learning all these things about myself, learning how to take care of myself and others in a way that I never really thought was possible to be able to be all the things that I want to be in the way that I want to be them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I feel like also having a coach, it not only accelerates things, but it also allows you to see that it brings things to an awareness that maybe you wouldn't have seen before, or it's so hard to get outside of yourself and
Yes,
to see those things. So being able to have that in your awareness and go, "Oh, I'm faced with this. What am I gonna do with this now?" is
exactly.
really helpful. I yes,
Exactly.
absolutely. That's wonderful. What do you think that it is about entrepreneurs, or I guess you actually have a really fun perspective since you also have like your practice, or you're also in the 9 to 5 world still. What do you think it is about entrepreneurs though that makes us continue on when it gets challenging instead of giving up and just being like, you know what, never mind, I'm just gonna do my 9 to 5, I'm gonna come home, I'm gonna do the rest for me. What do you think it is about entrepreneurs that's like, no, we're gonna keep going even when it gets tough?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is really being able to reflect on your progress because I think if you're focused in the moment on, oh gosh, like all these things are not working, but if you kind of go back and look to where you started and actually reflect on it, that's what learning is taking the time to learn from your experiences as opposed to just have them and keep going. I think and it doesn't have to be like this long, huge, elaborate thing, but I think looking at, okay, here's what I did that was a win. Here's where things maybe didn't go how I hoped, but here's what I can learn from it. I think, that and I think just like the creativity of being able to troubleshoot and design things and have that freedom to be in charge is incredibly exhilarating. It's definitely not for everyone because there's a lot of fear involved, but I think also some of that is where you start to push boundaries and like realize how awesome things can be.
Yeah, or how awesome you are, right?
Exactly. Yes. Also that.
That's fantastic. What then, I mean, you kind of already said this a little bit, but what overall takeaway or lesson do you think other mompreneurs would be able to use specifically from your experience, what you've gone through and what you have overcome in this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it really is about celebrating those wins because, as an example, like when I had my first daughter, I spent so much time, honestly, like beating myself up for not moving or exercising in the way that I wanted to. And then, like, a year later, when I started some of this and thinking about mindset and wins and all of that, it was like every single day with her, I was walking our dogs. We were outside walking with the stroller, like walking for 30 minutes, sometimes 45 minutes. I never ever counted any of that as movement. It was like, that's a chore, it's walking the dog. And so it was just that like realization of how critical your mindset is and what you think about it is basically like what you are. It's what pervades everything. And so when you have positive thoughts and you're focused on here's all the things that I'm doing and here's how I'm winning, and it doesn't matter if you think it's the teeniest little win, like write it down, read it. It absolutely counts. It changes everything because it just helps you see like, oh my gosh, like exactly how you said, like I'm awesome, look at all this stuff I'm doing, as opposed to focusing on the things that you feel like you're not doing or failing at. And so I think my pregnancy postpartum journeys every time have continued to improve because I really learned from that first time to give grace to myself, because you're so delicate in the pregnancy period, but especially postpartum when everybody around you, I don't want to say everybody, but like many of the people around you are like, oh my gosh, this new baby. And mom is sort of like kind of over there in the dust a little bit. And so then if you're not taking care of yourself and giving yourself grace and celebrating yourself, then who is? So it
Right.
really starts with you. And that's where, like, that's what I would want a mom to take away is when it's their first baby, like don't do what I did. Celebrate every single win, give yourself grace. And it's all about like leveling up, right? You have a baby, you're a different human, you're a different version of yourself. And don't there's a lot of talk of like bouncing back, which why would you want to go backwards, right? Like you're different, you're new, like level up, let's go, we got this.
I really like that perspective. I actually haven't heard anybody say it in that kind of way yet. Um, because you do hear so much of bounce back, or it took me about a year to get back to. I love the level up and just let
Yes.
it be new and different and change with it. Oh, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
so that I should give credit. I first heard that from anybody that knows Peloton. Robin Arzone is one of the instructors, and she did a lot of like pre and postnatal classes. And there was one class when I think I was pregnant with my third, and she said that, and it was just like, oh my God, it just like changed everything for me. And I think it's something that's like, blast it from the rooftops because every mom needs to hear this.
Yeah, well, and I think we don't hear it enough, absolutely. Being able to kinda
Yes,
drown out the bounce back to level up, I think that's huge. I love that.
yes,
That's a really powerful message. I would have loved to have heard that, and it's
exactly.
funny because we do compare ourselves so much to past versions of ourselves, but we
Mhm.
don't need to do that. This is such a beautiful, beautiful blossoming that we've gone through with each and every kiddo. I only have 3, so I can't imagine almost 5,
Only.
although I wanted to have 6, so I'm a little
Oh
jealous.
my word.
But I it's such a wonderful journey, and being able to share that. Also, look at what you now get to share with your kids when you're doing that, and have them being able to see that, is so healthy and so wonderful. I also wanted to kinda say, I love including my kids in any movement, in any exercise. I'm very much, what I do in my business is integrating your motherhood with your business ownership and really meshing the 2, and it doesn't have to be separate, it doesn't have to be this or that, you can really marry the 2 well. My son actually works for me in my business now, so
There you go.
it's fun to integrate the 2 and see how you can make it different than what others maybe expect it to look like. So yeah, I love incorporating them in movement and in whatever we're doing. Like, I like doing Just Dance because I think it's fun and also movement, but it gets them moving. It gets them having fun
Yes.
and seeing that too. So I think that's do you ever do that with your kiddos now with
Oh yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. And especially because they're my oldest is 7, so they're, 7, 5, 3, and, like, 19 months, so they are still in it, "Mom, what are you doing? What are we doing?" And, I mean, there are times where, like, I'll be on the treadmill and they're behind me, the cheerleaders, they'll pretend they're doing weights if I'm doing weights. A lot of times my husband has recently gotten into doing, like, a little bit of yoga or stretching in the evening, so I'll be making dinner and he'll get out the yoga mats and they're all doing yoga, So they are very involved and they want to participate. And I think, like you said, you build sort of those family memories, but it also instills at a very young age, like that's just part of who they are. And so then as they grow older, that's just their nature to be wanting to move, and it helps, I think, as you age to have that inherent as opposed to trying to become somebody that moves, which is possible. It's just more challenging if you haven't had it, all your life.
Right, right, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of this today. What is the best way for people
Absolutely.
to find you if they want to, be in your space, learn more about you and what you do, and just follow you and maybe work with you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my YouTube channel, I'm at Dr. Sara Ionescu. So it's Dr. and then Saraionescu. And that's actually my handle on Instagram and Facebook. So I have videos all those places. My website is the same, Dr. Sara Ionescu, and then it's just .com. So yeah, all these places you can come check me out.
I'm excited. I'll have the links in the description as well, but just in case they're only listening, they can still find you and follow you and be in your
Absolutely.
space and soak up all that goodness. But thank you again
Awesome.
so much for joining us today. I enjoyed it. I learned so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me. It was so fun to chat.
Yes, it was. I feel like I can talk to you guys forever, for all day. Everybody that I've interviewed, you all have such amazing stories. But and as always, I like to say that your story is inspirational, but your willingness to be open about it is very much appreciated and needed in this space, in this time. I feel like it's really important to hear these and to just be able to relate and pick and choose and use those in their own journey. So, thank you again. For those of you out there facing your own adversity, know that you're not alone. That's why we're doing what we're doing. When you need an extra hand or mind for brainstorming during your mompreneur journey, we would love to work with you through the Mom Elevated Society as well. We now have Gift Yourself Grace in there, so that's a great fun program quarterly that we do. You'll also find monthly check ins for goal setting and assessing, and so much more for both your mom life and your business. And until next time, keep shooting for the stars.